Anyone in need of medical assistance should report to Sex 133. We have been very fortunate to get food for you tonight.
Man, that's just wild video, right? Do you remember that? That was from 20 years ago during deadly Hurricane Katrina. Thousands were forced to take shelter in the Superdome. And that was after the levees collapsed, trapping the people inside the dome for days. For many, those terrible memories are still as fresh as the day when that storm hit. Today, we're speaking to one of the Katrina survivors who was trapped in that region with some other victims. He did what he could do, not just to save himself, but to help others around him. It's an honor to bring in right now Shelton Alexander. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. I appreciate it. You lived in New Orleans at the time, right? And you tried to get out, but you couldn't, so you went into the dome.
Yes. Thanks, Bob, for having me. Yeah, so it kind of was like one of those things that took me a while to get my mom's going and, you know, to convince her to leave, because the year before Ivan came and nothing happened. We stayed, and I think she was kind of in that mode, you know, and feeling like it wasn't going to happen again. And so, yeah, I just like at the last minute, we tried to head for Baton Rouge. It didn't work out. The gas meter was steady going down. I knew the Superdome was the shelter of last resort. And I just like, you know, in my head, like what could go wrong, you know, in the Superdome, you know, and just hearing that clip just recently, it's just like one of those things, like they promised us food and like that was a false promise. Just hearing how we was excited and cheering, like, you know, for those things that those guys mentioned that they never gave to us, and it just went to hell from there, you know.
It just seems like it's a scary situation. You rode the storm out there, and then they wouldn't let you leave because the levee overtopped itself, right?
Yes, I just didn't understand that, because they never really had a National Guard member that was inside the Superdome that was like in charge. Everybody tell us like, you know, they don't know who's in charge. I just couldn't figure that out, you know, being in the Marines before, like you wouldn't know, like, you know, chain of command who was in charge. And those guys was totally like confused, you know. And yeah, they had like, they could have did better. You know, we ate MREs. I'm familiar with it. I, you know, love eating MREs, but they had people that didn't know how to eat those. So I had to do like little workshops around there, like trying to teach them how to eat it on the fly, because, you know, if you eat an MRE, meals ready to eat, cold, it's not going to taste good. But if you know how to warm them up, you know, it could taste pretty good. But they had matches, a heating mechanism, Tabasco sauce, all this stuff that, you know, they could have made sure, like when they was passing those out, that made sure the kids, you know, wasn't getting a hold of the matches and stuff. But
oh my gosh,
yeah. I mean, they wasn't thinking, you know.
Yeah, Shelton, it sounds like you were taking control by yourself. So first of all, how long were you in there? And then second of all, how'd you get out?
Like 3.5 days. I was in there, and I would say the way I was able to get out, like we walked around the entire Superdome to different gates where the National Guards was like located at, and like they always blocking like the doors to like the entrances, you know, and the exits to get out. And so like when you coming into the Superdome, they have these things, you know, called ramps, and which, you know, like where the big crowd will come through at before they get into the entrance. So looked like the police and the National Guard slid the barricade over to the side for a second. I don't know what was going on, but they was kind of just hanging out and not really paying no attention at the time. And it was like, we all looked at each other, was like, this was our time to break.
It was your jailbreak, you know? Right? Ready to get out.
Yeah, it was. It was, and it just was like, oh, like, it was like we had kids, we had elders, you know, we had middle-aged people, we had teenagers, and we just went for it, because it was like, for me, ultimately, I really didn't like being held against my will.
Of course.
Like, I mean, I would take my chances in the water because, you know, I was top level swim quad when I was in the Marines, so I could swim pretty good. I didn't have a problem with that. I didn't want nobody keeping me in a place and they wasn't giving us any food and stuff like that. But I will say, as soon as we came down, this was the first time we actually seen the water when we walked down the ramp. So that did get pretty interesting. And a boat paddled up to us, was like, where you guys are going? And we all was like, you know, anywhere but in there. You know what I mean? Like, we done had it with that place. Like, no more of that. You know, just too much chaos, you know, and madness going on. And, you know, I would say, you know, the people did come together at different times. That's what I'm excited about. Like, we did clean sometimes together. We stood around the chaplain, let him pray over us. we marched and sang songs all around the Superdome, and that was a great thing. But when we finally got out of there, I had another journey because the people that was with me, they took my camera, my keys, and my bag. And I went to look for my truck. I found the truck, but I didn't have the keys. I didn't have my camera. I didn't have any of that. So all of that could have been lost. So it took me 4 hours to walk and find them. And that's in between the Superdome and the convention center. And I just was walking back and forth. And I was determined out of 100,000 people, I was going to find them because the water kept rising. My truck would have just flooded.
Oh my God.
And I wouldn't have had a chance to get like the people up out of there. And so I walked and I walked. But what happened during that walk is that I finally got to see the city and what like the other people felt that was on the outside. It was the first time I seen thousands of people looking, lost, like confused, like, floating in anything they could float on. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and
just dazed.
it was just, and then a reporter walked up to me and he asked me something like, he said, well, looking around, he said, how do you feel? And it's like, I'm a poet, I'm a writer, and I'm never at a loss for words, but this particular time I was like, I said, I don't know how to feel. And I was stuck right there.
Yeah.
I never said that before to anybody. Like,
you were in shock. I mean, Shelton, what a situation to be dealt, and you came through it with flying colors right now. How are you doing right now? Everything, I know it was 20 years ago, but how are you doing right now?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I think it's a matter of like, this is bigger than me as far as mental health and stuff like that. Like I suffered in silence for many years. I took a lot of losses, a lot of pain. I still have flashbacks about this every day. Like this will never go away. Like you can tell people with time heal all wounds, but that's not necessarily the case. You're gonna remember the people. You're gonna remember things. Like I hated leaving the people at the convention center. I got 19 people, including myself, out the storm, but I wish I could have took 1,000 more. You know what I mean? Like, but I couldn't do it.
Yep.
You know, so yeah, and I think for the sake of getting emotional in a few of the films that I'm participating in is all for the good, because I think men, often you got to be brave, tough. I played college football. I was in the Marines, so I mean, I'm hardcore, but I hurt too as well. So I just want men to know that maybe they should raise their hand and ask for help, a little sooner than later. You know what I mean? But so I'll take the hit for that. But I've been getting compliments from people from all over the world. It's been amazing. So I would say it hurts in one regard and it's hard to go back and look at. But at the end of the day, I know the people that's reaching, and I would say I never had people reach out to me like hundreds and hundreds of messages a day, and just personal messages and, stuff like that. And just so many different levels. I think that people, when they see me, they could respect my story from that aspect. And they just really amazed at like what I was able to do with that camera. Like, they're like, I'm the first blogger. Like you was, like you was, the newsman yourself, like a ghetto newsman or something,
I mean, you are such
like,
a strong
whatever.
man. And Shelton, you're such a strong guy, man. I love talking to you. I could talk to you forever, too. First of all, I want to thank you for your service, number one, in the Marines, but also thank you for what you did, helping people out in the Dome, man. You're just a good guy, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, Shelton Alexander right there. We appreciate it, man. All right, Fox Weather is your Hurricane HQ, and Katrina did expose the flaws in the infrastructure, and it taught some valuable lessons for the forecasters as well. We're going to continue the conversation in part 3 of our docuseries, Katrina's Wrath, 20 years later. You can catch a brand new episode tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern right here on Fox Weather.